everybody. I am super excited to welcome to the show Amber Wuollet. She is the Director of Marketing for Bold Penguin and a super insurance nerd. Is that the right way to categorize you, Amber?
I think it is, and I actually had a throwdown yesterday when I named myself the Nerdiest Insurance Nerd.
I like it.
I'm now calling the title. That's my stage name now. I think I need to put that everywhere. Make business cards and stuff.
Was it a specific person that you were having this throwdown with, or?
I've actually had a few, and I have said I am the nerdiest nerd, or I'm very nerdy. No. I'm nerdier because X, Y, Z, and it's usually about a draw. It's usually about a draw.
Well, I know how much you love reading all things insurance. And so I feel like sometimes I don't need to do the reading. I'll wait for the Cliff Notes version for me.
That is what I try to do. So I do all the research on all of it as much as I can, and then try to condense it and make a 7-minute video Cliff Notes version. Is kind of what I try to do with my video series.
Yeah. I think you do a great job. I have learned a lot. Maybe about topics I wasn't necessarily going to research. I felt like I walked away with something that I would not have had I not, watched one of your insurance nerdery videos.
Awesome. That makes me very happy. Thank you.
Yeah. So now I have to catch up on what's going on with pet insurance.
Yes, that was a new one for me. So I spent my whole career I have spent my whole career in P&C. So pet insurance is outside of my expertise. That was a fun one to research.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to catch up with it. So I always love the energy that you bring to your videos. It's always a ton of fun to watch. Because even if the information isn't super applicable to whatever I'm working on, there's a ton of entertainment value. So you do a great job. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. And I know you can sympathize with video setup and teardown.
Oh, yes. Because likewise, I love your energy for your Monday videos and always look forward to them. And I always appreciate the effort behind content and the work that's put into it and the heart and soul that's put into it. So I always appreciate when I see others like you on there rocking it. So
yeah, well, thank you. So Amber and I met in Chicago at Insurance Nerds Day, as all good insurance relationships start. And yeah, so it was a ton of fun. I haven't gotten to go back, but you keynoted this year, correct? Or what was your closing remarks?
Yeah, I was the closing keynote. So much fun. We had a great audience from the industry as well as Gamma Iota Sigma. And it always blows me away when I see, hundreds of students who are excited about insurance and planning their careers in insurance. It's just such a cool vibe mixed in with the more tenured folks. And it's a really cool thing. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah. So you're getting to see the next generation of insurance professionals before their careers really even start, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I remember looking out the room and there's just, this sea of hundreds of faces and thinking these are the next superstars. This is the future of the industry. It's just such a cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. So you are now the Director of Marketing for Bold Penguin. They're based out of Columbus, but you're a Minnesota girl. So how are you splitting your time? What does that look like for you right now?
My schedule is a little chaotic, but most weeks I'm in Columbus for the 3 to 4 days of the work week. So I'm actually in Minneapolis right now, but most of the week I would be in Columbus right now, but actually had a little bit of influenza. So I'm keeping my germs to myself for the moment. But yeah, it's actually there's 4 direct flights a day, so it's not too bad. But I will be full-time Ohioan status next summer. So commuting for the time being, usually Monday to Thursday type deal. But with the goal and the ideal of being there full time and having a more normal commute to work in a few months.
Yeah. So instead of a flight, how long is the flight?
It's actually not too bad. It's an hour and a half. Maybe.
Oh, that isn't too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad.
So instead of an hour and a half flight, you'll have a 20-minute drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty excited for that.
Yeah. So you and the family are moving to Columbus.
We are. Actually, we're building in Westerville. If
Oh,
you're
okay.
familiar with Ohio, it's like north of Columbus. So a really cute little suburb, and downtown. Awesome thing about the Columbus area is like you don't have to go that far out to get the suburban feel. I feel like in the Twin Cities area, you kind of have to drive a ways out to get like that like country vibe.
Yeah.
But Westerville, I think it's like maybe 24 minutes or something commute in. So it's not too bad, and it's really got that like outside suburban feel. There's like open fields and like trees and nature, and but there's also like a Whole Foods and gyms and Targets and stuff like that. So really excited. I'm really excited to just be like full-time in Bold Penguin does a fantastic job with culture stuff. So there's constantly like fun things and events and get-togethers, and I always have a little bit of FOMO. I go to the ones I can, of course, but I miss a lot of them, and I don't get to engage like with the tailgates and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to be full-time in.
Yeah, in one place for sure, and then to be able to build bigger relationships with your colleagues will be a fun experience. So do you have two boys? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I was about to say 3 and 5, but my 3-year-old turned 4 yesterday. So yeah, 4 and 5, I guess now. So that was one of the additional reasons behind the commuting. So I joined the company in August. Kids were all set for the school year. So between that and my husband's job, we're like, yeah, let's just commute. We want to like make this a planful adjustment. We were both born and raised here in Minnesota, so it's a pretty big shift for our family.
Yeah.
So that gave us time to like research neighborhoods, build a house, like apply for school, like just find the right path for each of us. And yeah, so they're really excited too. They get to look at pictures, and like there's basically like a hole in the ground with some sticks right now, the new house, but they're excited. We talk about how they're going to decorate the new bedrooms and stuff like that. So, hashtag change management.
Yeah, no kidding. Because change management doesn't only apply to work, unfortunately. Like we have to be constantly in that state of changing and moving and doing new things. And yeah, nothing stays the same for very long.
Nope, it does not.
No. So how long have you been in insurance?
So I've been in insurance since 2007. So I guess that's 13 years now.
Yeah.
So lucky year 13. And I always say I can relate when I go to, the GIS functions and I see these students excited about insurance. But in one way, I was the opposite of them. I wasn't like pulled into insurance kicking and screaming, but it wasn't like my top career choice. I was like, I'll pass a few years in corporate America and then I'll do something cool in retail or something. But yeah, just completely fell in love with the industry. I think, well, I wouldn't say in part due, almost entirely due to the company and the team that I had the extreme good fortune of joining. So I spent 10 years with American Family and cannot say enough about my experience there and how well I was like nurtured and educated while I was there to really just become a lifelong insurance fanatic.
Yeah. Yeah. So they built the nerd, huh?
They did. They built the nerd.
Yeah. It's funny how it's like you didn't mean to get in there. And then once you get in, it's like completely in your blood. So I was in the agency portion of insurance for 15 years. And I couldn't imagine stepping away from the industry after 9 years. I left for a year and went back because it was just like ingrained in me. So it's like, it's really hard. Once you get started, it's like, oh, I can't get away from this. It sucks you right back in, even if you try and run away. So, so you've made this big shift into a new career. Can you tell us what did that look like? I was surprised only that I had no idea that you were looking to make a shift a little bit in your insurance career. So, what was that like and how has it been for you?
Yeah, so I spent 10 years in underwriting ops at American Family, and I started doing a lot of project work towards the end, got to work on some really cool stuff. So spent a lot of time with like product and marketing and actuaries. So I got a chance to see all of it. And during that time, I was also working on my MBA at the University of Minnesota. So I started thinking about, okay, so like, what are next steps? Where's my dream job? And I really started being pulled towards product and marketing. So at that point in, a few years back, I decided to shift to the tech side. So I spent a few years with a data company here in Minnesota. And during this whole time frame, I had always been kind of like watching Bold Penguin. So I recall vividly, like when InsurTech first started exploding, like in 2015, 2016, a lot of the messaging that we were hearing on the carrier side, at least I was hearing, was like, we're disrupting, we're going to revolutionize what you're doing. You carriers, you're dinosaurs, you agents, you're dinosaurs, we're going to replace all of you. And it was like very confusing. As a carrier, coming from the underwriting side, like, do you understand how complex our industry is? Like, do you really? Yeah. And I remember seeing Bold Penguin, and their messaging coming out of the gate was like, we are not disrupting or replacing anyone in the value chain. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to empower you.
Right.
So they caught my attention immediately in a very interesting way. So I've been kind of watching them, and it's fun now because I like went back and I like signed up for the newsletter like the day after it was like launched, I think. So I was kind of like this Bold Penguin fangirl. So when a friend recommended that I chat with leadership, like I talked to Ilya Bodner and Mark Hara, and it was immediately sold. I was like, I need to be a part of this. I just feel like our energies align so well, and I'm so excited about the work that they're doing, which is the reason why I was willing to commute, however many miles, which is kind of an unusual life choice. But it's because I'm so passionate about what the company is doing and the direction and the team, why I'm willing to commute and, obviously soon move my family down there to be part of it full time. So that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at in this kind of hectic commute phase.
So you'll have about a year of that, and then you'll get to find your new normal in Ohio.
Yeah.
So I always think Ilya Bodner looks like Simon Sinek.
Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. I need to do like a face-to-face meme comparison now.
Yes. Please, somebody create this. I remember the first time I saw him, I was like, I did a double take, and then somebody else agreed with me, but then I've never spoken of it again.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So now we're just putting it out on a podcast. So what is it that you think what is it that attracts you to insurance? Like, what do you love about the insurance industry? Like, what has just like locked you in for life?
So, I think there's a few things that I realized within the first year of joining the industry. And the first is just that, like, it's so interesting. So in underwriting, I was on the personal line side, and there's so many things to consider when considering if a risk is something you want to take on or not. And there's so many things you can do to change and modify a risk. And how do you do that? And how do you write something? My favorite was always like when an agent would call me and be like, okay, got this risk. So they've got 2 cars, and then this car's over here, and this is a specialty car. It also has some jewelry. Oh, but they commute to Hawaii. Oh, and they also kind of like, and it's like, okay, so how do we do this? Okay, what if we do an endorsement for that? If we can get the umbrella, get the 5 million limit. Oh, and then what if we'll bring in commercial for this? And it's like, it's so much fun because you're looking at this like human, like, and their business and their life, and you're trying to make sure it's protected. And you're finding ways to do that using your knowledge and creativity. And it is so much fun. It's so interesting and so quickly evolving. I think about, my first few years, using the old mainframe systems, like launching online billing, things that, were revolutionary at the time, and
Right.
but just how quickly it changed. You got the guide wires and the Duck Creeks of the world, and you've got obviously like the thousands of innovations in insurtechs, but so much has happened. So it's not an industry that you can like join and you're working on an assembly line of financial transactions. It's so complex and nuanced. And the other big thing is how important it is. I think there's obviously a lot of different ways to cover risks, but the gist of it is you're supporting someone's livelihood, their home, their transportation, their life in some cases, their business, their dreams and goals. That's a really cool thing to be able to do, like to work in an industry that basically supports the economic stability of the country, the world.
Right.
Just it's so cool, and it's such important work, and there's such meaning in it. And it's easy to forget that in the nuances of like at the time, like processing new business or processing changes or things. But all of that creates this stability and this protection for people. And that is such a cool thing.
So there's a couple of things that you said in there that I feel like it's such an important part of what we do. For one, I don't think most people look at the insurance industry from the outside, or even like when we're trying to attract new talent and look at it as an industry where they can come and be creative. And it is a creative, and I just don't think that people see it that way. Like, how do we get people to understand that and really attract those creative thinkers? Because those are really the ones that are going to continue moving the industry forward in the direction that it really needs to go. So, like, how do we attract that talent, and how do we get people to understand the importance of the work? We're protecting lives. We're protecting assets. We're making sure that people have the financial stability that they need in case something happens. So like, those are two really important things that I feel like are just lacking in general in communication to the people outside of the industry. We get it because we're inside living it every day, but like, how do we get that messaging out and really get people interested? Because we have an attrition issue, obviously, in the industry. So how do we, I feel like there's ways to solve it, but like, how do we get that messaging out?
I feel like this is the perfect time for me to bring out my water bottle. I don't know if you can see it. It says Insurance Nerds on it. But this is one of the reasons I am so incredibly passionate about the work that Insurance Nerds is doing. And I think there's several organizations, Gamma Iota Sigma, for example, who are really doing great work to bring new talent in and really create a community that is welcoming to new talent and that can nurture, fresh talent coming in. Something I'm very passionate about. I also think it's important to sort of be the industry, be the representative of the industry. That's one of the reasons I kind of chose the content format that I did for my video series. So in the insurance industry, in the insurance nerdery, I try to, create content that speaks to questions and conversations people are having, right, but in a way that you don't need a CPCU to understand. And I think that is something that is starting to become more and more prevalent, is that kind of personalized, like authentic connection. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but it's really about creating an industry that is appealing. And what's appealing to most people, including, Gen Z, is authenticity and meaning, and excitement and challenge. And there's so much going on in the insurance industry. There's definitely no shortage of challenges. I remember when I started my video series thinking, well, like, what if I run out of topics? I definitely do not have a problem of running out of topics. Like, right, there's so much change happening and so many things going on. So those are just a few of the things that I have kind of tried to do to contribute. And I'm always open to, like, I'll speak at like universities or even high school classrooms, or just wherever I can to add the messaging so that people know that it's an option, because it's such a great career. And it's so underhyped.
Yeah. And I think that your career shows that like, and so many of them, like the story is like, you're not stuck in one thing once you enter the industry. You can do the same thing forever, but there's so much opportunity. There's not just like, you're an underwriter forever, or you're, a customer service rep forever, or you're an agent forever. Like there's really not one golden path anymore. I don't feel like there's a lot of permission to just create your own ideal journey. And I feel like I've really watched that change, because it was kind of like single lane, like one-way street.
Yes. Yep.
When I started out, and it's not like that anymore. I feel like your pivot is just like living proof of how much that has changed, which is great. And I think getting people to recognize the vast opportunity, because it's just, you can create your own magic recipe of a perfect career and start living it within the insurance space, I think.
Yeah, oh, completely. And I think that is something that definitely is very appealing, and I've seen connect well with the younger generations. Yeah, I mean, in my own career, I started as like an entry-level ops rep, and worked my way up to like underwriting specialist, and then into a leadership role, and then moved into product, and now marketing. And the thing is, like, they're all complementary. Because I stayed in insurance, like the knowledge that I have, and I joke that you don't need a CPCU to get my videos, but I want my CPCU. Still working on it. And I have some other smaller designations, but I still want that one. But I think all of that, it all works together very well. Like you don't have to like stop what you're doing, start over, and like try something new from the bottom. Like you can build on it in different ways. Like your career track doesn't have to like just be a straight line. It can be if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. There's room for choice. And if you think about, all the carriers out there doing innovative things, and the insurtechs out there doing innovative things, there's so many positions that didn't even exist 5 years ago. That like, there's just so much room for everyone. I mean, I think one thing with insurtech, there's a lot of initial talk of what's going to, there's going to be no more insurance jobs, but that's not really what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is jobs are just shifting and changing and evolving, and offering us more opportunity to do more fun things and less, mundane things. So far, that's, I think, had some positive ramifications.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it is those jobs that didn't exist. I had the exact same thought, like as you were saying it. It's just like the roles and the need within the industry have changed. And so, yeah, the landscape of career opportunity has as well, which is, I think it's an amazing thing to watch. I look forward to see what kind of jobs are available. Like, what does a career in insurance look like 5 years from now? Because it's going to look different than what you and I are seeing right now. And it's going to be fun to be a part of that. It is such a great industry to be a part of. I love it. So part of my goal with this podcast is really to highlight the journeys of amazing women like you. How do you think being a woman in the industry has kind of impacted your journey, or, what has that been like to kind of move your way through, into this director role now?
Yeah. So I often just step back and think, how did I get so lucky? Because where I started, I thought this was normal at the time because I didn't know anything different. But where I started my career, like in my office, was full of incredible women leaders. I like 4 out of my 5 first direct managers were women. So I just was surrounded. I thought it was normal. Like I didn't realize I didn't realize the magnitude of how lucky I was at the time. Because like that was just normal to me. Like, and they were such amazing mentors. I had such amazing mentors who like really guided me, and invested in me and believed in me. And I had male bosses as well who did the same. So I feel just incredibly lucky, because there are some challenges. And I think about, I was listening to your podcast with Sid Rowe, and the challenges of like having a family. And like for me, I had 2 kids whilst going through my MBA and moving into leadership. And get this, I was hired into my first leadership role at AmFam when I was 7 months pregnant. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Amazing. I still am like, I can't believe how supported I was at that point. So that was a lesson that I've carried with me, is like, to not set limitations for myself, because that's the examples that I had. And I had such belief behind me. That's just like mind boggling. So I think having that background has really helped me to thrive in all different kinds of environments, because I got that exposure so gradually. Went on my first business trip with my boss, and she just like walked me through like all of it, how it works and like where we're going, and just didn't take for granted. Like I wasn't like ever just like thrown into the water and told how, hope that I can swim. So I think that really set me up for success for the rest of my career. And now being on the tech side, which is still kind of predominantly male, I would say in most aspects, I feel like I can adapt to that very, very well because of the lessons and the mentoring and the guidance that I had early on in my career, and the belief that was given in me by both my female and male leaders at AmFam.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible to have such strong female leadership immediately in your career.
I'm so lucky. I completely acknowledge that.
Yeah. But I think it's fabulous, and it speaks to like it does change the way that your journey would go. I mean, honestly, my experience wasn't the same, but I had good leaders in my life. So so I do feel very blessed that I felt like I had permission to explore. But yeah, I mean, I think there can be this, a little bit of that tension that exists in the industry, in terms of it being very male dominated, but like part of what I want is just for it to be a conversation where all input is given credibility. Like, how do we make that conversation meaningful for everybody and make sure that we're not representing one over the other. I wouldn't want women to be overrepresented either. I think just making sure that we're representing all voices and backgrounds and, the whole diversity and inclusion thing in the industry. I love watching how much more diverse our industry has become just in the last few years. And maybe it was always that way, and I was just kind of living in a smaller world. But I feel like just in like attending conferences over the last couple of years, watching that shift has been pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think that's so important to really growing as an industry and continuing to move at the pace we need to move at. We need all voices present. And I think you hit on something really important there, that I think helps all to succeed better in the workplace, is like acknowledging all communication types. I feel like we've all been in meetings occasionally where it's like there's not a pause in the conversation. People just like talk over each other and keep going. But not all, that doesn't work for all communication styles. Some communication styles need a quick pause before they jump in. So I just think the way that we run our businesses and meetings and like the culture of our industry need to be accepting of all and work well with all communication styles. And that is one of the ways that we, I think, work with and leverage diversity across the board.
Yeah. So for the women out there that maybe are looking for that strong female leader, that mentor in their lives, like what kind of advice would you give them? I mean, obviously you had them right in front of you, but do you have any advice for how they can like seek that person out? Like what's a good way? Because you've probably continued to connect with other women leaders in the industry and maybe outside of the industry as well. So how do we help make those contact points for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are some organizations that have processes in place to support mentorship and sponsorship, but I still think most don't. So it does leave you in this place where if you don't have a formal mentor assigned, how do you find that and establish that relationship? And one thing that I have always been a huge fan of is like informational interviews, like job shadows, and building relationships that way. And I think that can be challenging, but I think making your like reaching out on your own, if you don't have any, if your company does not have anything in place, can be a great starting point. So if you want to know more about a certain job, that's a great way to get involved with a female leader who may be in that job, to grab a coffee if you can, or a FaceTime chat. And I've had very positive experiences using that approach. And certainly some people are just so busy they can't make it work, but then they're probably not the best mentor anyway.
Right.
But just being clear about what you're looking for, and communicating that. And I know I always try to always make time, like whenever humanly possible, for those types of calls and conversations and to support others, because it has been so impactful in my life. And if there's no one specifically, if there's a specific role, for example, that you want to move into, and you there's no women in your company in that role, for example, but you want that guidance. I think reaching out to your network, leveraging tools like LinkedIn, and having someone, play matchmaker, can be another option. But I actually have always dreamed of having like some kind of like mentoring platform. I don't have the bandwidth to create it, but if anyone wants to create it, you should. that like matches mentors and mentees.
Match.com for
yes, exactly, for insurance.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
And for like women, and diversity, I think seeing yourself in the role, and having that support is so helpful. So, but it can be very challenging, I acknowledge, to find that and find someone who has the bandwidth to support you through that.
Yeah, it can be tough. And I think we have to figure out how to do a better job of doing that. And I don't know what the perfect formula is. Yeah. I do love the idea of like a match.com for insurance mentoring, because I think it would get widely used. And the thing is like, imagine the people you would connect with. I mean, talk about building a network. That would be pretty incredible. And LinkedIn is a great way to do that. I think some people don't even know where to get started, but I mean, I've been very lucky. I didn't necessarily have all of the strong female leaders within the agency that I came from, but managed to just kind of like be a little bit brave about talking to people and building a network, and people that are peers of mine, I also consider to be mentors, because
absolutely.
We haven't all done the same jobs. Mm-hmm. And so every time I have a conversation with somebody, or even somebody that isn't, like, I'm sure that I can pick up tons of marketing strategy tips from you, and we're essentially in the same role, but I feel like your expertise is probably a lot bigger than mine.
Everyone's different experiences and different.
So it's like, understanding that mentoring in the traditional sense doesn't exist anymore either.
Right.
Yeah. Even that looks different than it did when I first started out. And not that I still talk to the person that mentored me in the first years of my career. She's like a mom to me. And I feel very lucky that I was able to establish that relationship, like within the first month of, my insurance career. I think it's been a difference maker for me. But I do think there's a strong need for that, because if you feel like you're not able to make those connections, then I think you're more likely to move on to an industry that you feel like is going to take care of you. I think that it is a challenge that we face in terms of really being able to retain the talent that comes in, and support the development of the next generation of female leaders. Because I've been very lucky, and I hope that all of these super connections that we're building, because I feel I can't believe, like, what were the odds that I was just going to go to Chicago and meet you? It's like, it is kind of crazy that, you just kind of like take a little step forward and it leads to a whole bunch of other stuff. But giving people like the wings and the permission, and maybe even like the financial encouragement that they need to approach those things, I think is going to be a big thing in the coming years. It's just one of those things we have to kind of like build and put together, and yeah. But I think there's enough of us, strong women out there to put our heads together and figure out how to make all of these pieces interlock and create something that is going to be helpful to the next generation.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Now we're hatching a project.
Someone make a platform.
Yes. After you get moved into your in your house in Ohio, we can like start working
drafting a master plan.
Yes, working on
mentoring platform.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm writing this down, and now we're committed. So, when you talk about the leaders that you've had in the past, who's had the biggest impact on your life, on your career, and why?
Oh gosh, that's probably one of the more difficult questions because I have had so many leaders, but I think the one that comes to mind who put me on my first big project at AmFam is Rachel Melberg. So she was an underwriting manager at the time, and I was on her team. And I think I was probably like only a few months in, maybe like 6 to 12 months into the team and the role at the time. And she just really took a chance on me. She drafted me for a project, changing our rating structure in a few of our states, launching some new discounts, and then doing some wildfire guideline work, and just really guided me and believed in me and modeled how to do it all. I still don't understand how she did it all. She was like, and still is, I'm sure, superwoman. But whenever there's so many lessons that I still use that are from her, that are still so relevant. And just, it created this like building blocks that I built like so much of my career on. So Rachel, if you're listening, thank you. It's like, sometimes I feel like it's hard to communicate to someone like how much they changed your life. Like you can say like, you mentored me, you meant so much to me. And it's like, I think people brush it off like, oh yeah, I was doing my job. It's like, no, you really like changed the direction of my life. Like sometimes it's like, I can't like express enough how much people have done for me. Like, cause yeah, I feel, I've mentioned many times, I'm broken record now. I was very lucky. And I feel like she was one that really, really just took a chance and believed in me and really, changed the course of my career.
Yeah, it's a really special thing when somebody's willing to take a chance on you. Because it's like, I sit there and, like when that has happened in my life, I'm like, I have no credibility.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm like, I don't know why you guys think I can do this, but I'll sure try. But then you look back and you're like, oh, this was the encouragement I needed. This was the little push out of the nest that I needed to take the next bold move in my career. And it's pretty amazing when you can kind of like sit back and take stock of what all of that really meant. And, you may not even understand the impact of it at the time, but then like years later and you look back and it's like, oh yeah, that was a huge deal.
Yes.
Yeah. All of the, the bricks really just start to make sense in your path. And so, and all the people that had to come into your life in order to bring you to where you are now is pretty incredible. So if you had to give yourself advice, or even like another woman that's like starting out in the industry, maybe, a couple of years in, trying to figure out like, what does the rest of my career look like? Or what should I do next? Like, what kind of advice would you give somebody else?
I would say learn to love being uncomfortable, because that is where all the fun happens. And it is very difficult at first in general to like embrace being uncomfortable. And think about like public speaking, like being the number one fear of general public, for example. People don't like being uncomfortable. But if you can get used to it and get comfortable being uncomfortable, what you can accomplish is basically limitless. But it takes practice. And it takes commitment to the principle. And there's several books written about it. like Shonda Grimes, and Mel Robbins, and but yeah, the idea is just that you take action before you talk yourself out of it. When you were talking about the importance of someone believing in you, I was trying to remember the stat of like women will apply for a job if they feel like 100% ready for the job. Men will apply if they feel like 40% ready for the job. So I feel like in its many cases, it takes someone believing in you. It takes someone taking like, I don't know that I would have necessarily applied for those projects if it had been like, posted or something, on the internet, like apply for these project lead roles if you think you qualify. I probably wouldn't have.
Right.
But my manager saw something in me, and being the amazing leader she was, she tapped me on the shoulder. Was I 100% ready? Of course not.
Right.
But I was probably somewhere between like, I don't know, 60 and 70. But I ended up doing well on the projects. But again, I don't know that I would have done that without someone first teaching me how to do that, pulling my hand and saying, this is a great fit for you. You have XYZ background, do it. So I think was a very important lesson that I found early on. And then finding a community. I think this is something that it doesn't have to be, it can be spread across, LinkedIn or Twitter and in person and at conferences and events, but finding a community so that it feels like home, and that takes away some of the discomfort.
Yeah.
So I know I'm looking at, like, whenever I look at conferences, I'm like, oh, who's speaking? If I have a speaking role, for example, I'm always a little bit nervous, like, oh, so-and-so's gonna be there and so-and-so's gonna be there. And it takes away some of the discomfort, even if I'm still a little bit nervous about whatever role I had, because I'm always a little bit nervous whenever I have to speak. But having that mitigates some of the uncomfortableness that comes along with growth. So just accepting that growth is uncomfortable helps you get past imposter syndrome, and so does your community. So finding that community, and I know at some of those Gallup polls, for example, one of the most debated questions I've seen is like do you have a best friend at work question? Like, well, my best friend doesn't work at my office or whatever, right. But sorry, the principle is that, do you have someone at work or some people at work that you can talk to, that you feel comfortable around, because you're like exponentially more likely to be satisfied and happy in your company if you do. People are just, the human brain is just hardwired for connection and community. So if you can build your community and get comfortable being uncomfortable, and move past imposter syndrome, you'll find like the rewards trickling in pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We all need to be supported. We're not on islands. We don't live in a bubble. We need to have that support system, and it looks different for different people, but yeah, having that person at work that you can just, like, even if it's just bouncing stuff off on, or you're not afraid to ask them a question that somebody else might perceive as stupid. Yeah, I mean, there is that sense of safety and community is huge, and especially when you're starting out, whether it's you're new to the industry or you're new to your the line of work that you're doing within the industry. There's a lot of reasons to be intimidated, and obviously imposter syndrome plays into all of that. So are you a subscriber to the 5-second rule?
I am.
Are you really?
I am.
Oh my God. I'm so excited for you. It terrifies me.
Lifetime
I have to go at least 10.
Well, 10 is better than never.
Yeah. Or 24 hours. Or I changed my clothes 5 times before I don't even have to see anybody, and I still change my clothes. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get over this. Yikes. Well, I'm so excited that we got a chance to talk today. I need to know when our paths are going to cross again.
On-ramp or dig-in?
I can't go to either one of those. When is on-ramp?
On-ramp. April something. I should check. It's in Minneapolis. Lots of great vegan restaurants.
Yeah. I think we forgot to establish this at the beginning. I am either the shorter, darker haired version of you, or you are the taller, blonde version of me. Same job.
Yes.
Same diet. What's funny is how many vegans I feel like I'm meeting on the insurance circuit now.
Well, see, you can't tell. It's hard to tell. And I'm like 99.4% vegan. Yeah. So it's like we're hiding in plain sight, I feel like. So we need to have like some kind of like secret LinkedIn group and like, admit and like get in if you know someone kind of thing. So
you have to wear a pin that says plant-based.
Yes.
I have a shirt. Of course I have a shirt. So what is OnRamp? Because I was doing a video about it last year, but honestly I wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah. So it's the local accelerator. So they have offices, I think, in Madison, well, around the Midwest. They had the conference. They used to rotate between Chicago and Minneapolis, but I think they are in Minneapolis here this year. So it's a smaller event. I believe it's like 1 day or 1.5 days. But yeah, I really enjoyed it last year. They had great content, great networking. And it was hosted in like the Target Center. I think it's like a baseball field this year. It's kind of a cool venue too.
Yeah.
So of course I'm born and raised in Minnesota. So I live in Minneapolis. Of course I got to pitch it hard for people to like come back to OnRamp. Although last year there was a blizzard on the day of the conference so bad that people got stuck here. And I talked to a few people who like were supposed to fly out from OnRamp to like family vacations and got stuck because of the blizzard. So I'm hoping that everyone comes back this year. I should like flip it around. It's beautiful here. I mean, not beautiful, but it's warmish, meaning it's like 38 here, which is like a tropical paradise.
Yep, I hear you.
So I think you're not too far south from me. So
yeah, I know exactly how that goes. Oh my gosh, yeah, but it's very windy here today.
Yeah.
It's not at the end of April, is it?
I think it might be. It's mid to end of April. I think last year was like April 12th or something, but I think it's a little bit like that week or after that week.
Okay. So will you be speaking there? Or
no, I will not be speaking, just attending.
Okay. So if you want to find Amber, what's the best way to find you?
So my Twitter goal for this year was that the next podcast I did after tweeting, I was going to be like, find me on Twitter. I tweet every day. That's a lie. I don't. I have not gotten in the habit of tweeting. I am on Twitter, but still the best place to find me is probably LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn most frequently as far as the social channels go. And I'm in the Insurance Nerd Slack chat as well, but I don't get in as often these days. My schedule it's been a little bit hectic, a lot hectic the past few months. But yeah, that's where I am. So yeah, connect on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to meet and get to know new insurance nerds.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks for nerding out with me.
Thank you for nerding out with me
so much. Yeah, and I can't wait until we get to see each other again.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.